Good morning and welcome to Unlocking Freedom in Nature and Art. We are so excited to be here this morning. Good morning, Lori, and good morning, Teresa.
Good
Hel-
morning.
Hello, and I like to say greetings because doesn't matter where you are in the world or when are you watching this recording or playback, we're just wanting to salute you wherever you are. We want to say greetings wherever you're at. Doesn't matter the time. And we had a little break, and it's so good many times for us to take some time off to take care of what matters mo most, which is ourselves, our families, our households. And we want to lead by example. So that's why we had a little break there. But we are excited to be back and with an amazing guest, Teresa Dukes. She's good friends with Patty Kennedy. We are so excited that Patty introduced her to us. And what is more fascinating is that Teresa just said that Patty's part of her story, right, Tammy? And that's what we want to get to.
Oh, exactly. So, good morning, Teresa. And we just want to have tell us a little first where you're from and so you're talking speaking from, and then we're going to dive into your story.
Okay. I actually say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That incorporates everybody whenever I want to call. Uh, I am actually located in the United Kingdom, about an hour north of London, but I did not originate from here. I actually originated from North Carolina, a little bitty town called Graham, North Carolina. I could not leave quick enough, though. That's what I will say. I wanted to explore the world, and that's what I'm doing. So,
That's awesome. So, let's hear your story about growing up and stuff, everything that's kind of led you to where you're at, those defining moments.
the defining moment. Well, I could
Kind
go.
of your story of where you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can go all the way back to my childhood. And, when I was growing up in North Carolina, I was raised with three siblings, all girls. So there was four girls in my family. And we were still raised in North Carolina where it was very much the deep dark South. And if you were a girl, you were told to be quiet and, speak only when you were spoken to. But I was always the one that laughed and had fun and would get in trouble because I would always speak when I wasn't spoken to.
You were the
Um,
black sheep, huh?
I was the black
That
sheep.
was me, so I understand.
Yeah. But, there was something in me at that particular point in time. And I can remember all the way back to like about 3 years old when Mama asked me, she says, "What kind of cake do you want for your birthday, Teresa?" And I went, "A German chocolate one." Now, I had no idea what a German chocolate cake was, but as soon as she brought it out and the icing on that cake, it's like chocolate with coconut and pecans all chopped up really nice and fine, right? And the image of that cake was just like, "Thank you so much, Mom." Yeah. And, from that point forward, I knew that if I asked, I could get. So I am always of the mindset that if you don't ask, you don't get. Then my
No,
mama told me,
that's one of my favorite cakes actually, is German
"Isn't
chocolate
it?"
cake. It is so yummy. I don't put any nuts in the frosting, but it's one of my favorites. So,
Oh, you got to have the nuts. Come on down. You got to have
uh,
the nuts.
oh,
No, well,
it gives a bitter taste in my mouth. The nuts
mm,
do for some reason. So that's
okay, okay.
everybody has their love though, but it's like, oh, and then like my one daughter, she doesn't like the coconut frosting on top, but she loves white chocolate frosting.
I
So
gotcha.
many tricky, but if nobody's had German chocolate cake, it's a different type of chocolate, but it's so yummy. So,
They have to go and now try it.
and you
That's what
have to make it or buy or go to a bakery that bakes from scratch because just normal store-bought chocolate cakes, German chocolates, don't taste the same.
no. You gotta try it out. It's called trial and error. If you don't make it right the first time, you just keep trying until you get it right. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. But going from that childhood, uh, understanding that if you ask, you get. it took me a long way because I knew in high school, by the time I got to high school, I wanted to travel. I had put down, I didn't know I had a vision board at the time, but I had written down, I want to travel the world and I will never stay in the United States forever. I want to go and see what else is going on out there in the world. And the very first trip I ever took outside of North America was when I was 17. I was a senior in high school. And our Spanish class was organizing a school trip to take our Spanish students over to Spain. But we didn't only go to just Spain, we were hooking up with another French class that wanted to go to France. So we went to both Spain and France, got to see Paris, met somebody underneath the Eiffel Tower. That was quite interesting. Uh, and in Madrid, oh my gosh, the biggest thing I remembered about Madrid was they were still doing bullfighting at that particular point in time.
Oh, wow.
We didn't go to any bullfighting, but you could buy the posters, and that's what I brought home. I brought home a poster of this bullfighter and his red cape and everything, and it was just amazing. And I think I was the only one in my little group that had learned how to speak effectively Spanish, but do not ask me to say anything in Spanish today.
I
I
was
was going to
about
have Lori
to.
test you.
Well, I
Hola,
love that
hola.
you had manifested that with what you wrote on your back then board, or now it's like a vision board. That's wonderful. Speaking of that, so is there anything else you want to share about the person you met under the tower and and what happened there?
You never know what happens when you meet somebody spontaneously. And this young man was very nice. He actually talked to my teacher and said, "Hey, I would love to take Teresa out for a meal." And my teacher came to me and said, "Teresa, would your mama agree with this?" And I looked her square in the eye and I went, "Yes." My mama would have died. I still don't know if she knows that story or not, but the teacher let him take me out to a meal, but the caveat was that the entire group we were with had to go too. So,
Oh yeah,
I love that.
I love it.
Smart teacher.
smart teacher.
I want to say hello to Aika, Trish, and Patty Kennedy. Patty is saying, Teresa reminded me today that if I don't ask for what I won't get what I want. And it is true. There's a Bible verse that basically teaches us that ask and you shall receive, knock and it shall be open. And I love that. Teresa, in which other ways, in you come from the corporate world, etc. And I know Tammy might want to hear more about the process, but your story, like she likes. But I want to know, like, if you've had more of that happen to you when you ask, it is given to you, and what can you tell our audience? Um, your lessons learned throughout your life about that topic.
That is a question I get from a lot of people, not necessarily about me, but about themselves. And it's one of the things I love to coach them through. So with me, I was in the corporate world, British telecommunications here in the UK for about 16 years. And it was during a time where I had gone through, a marriage. I was married, I had two kids. The kids were in high school and I was working. And at that particular point in time, I was going through a very bad marriage, which meant that I needed to find a way to escape. Well, I won't go into major details, but it was important that I found a path that would lead me and my two kids to a place that would be very healthy for us compared to what we were in. So while I was in this corporation, I had a really fabulous mentor. He was my boss. And he actually looked at me and he says, "Teresa, whatever you need, just let me know." He says, "Because I can see potential in you. And if you need to make more money, then we find ways for you to work your way up the ladder." Because at that point in time, I was what they would call an executive secretary and just doing my thing, just taking care of my boss and his team. I say, and that's not
More of
every.
a personal assistant, it almost sounds.
Yeah, it's kind of like an executive assistant, yeah. And when he realized exactly what I was going through, we bent over backwards. It took 18 months to actually figure out how we could change the perception of those around me, because the senior execs that I worked in collusion with always saw me as a secretary, a support person, a clerical person, when in fact what I was doing was more a management role. And in order for me to change their perception, they needed to be able to hear me, not just listen to me, but hear what I was saying, understand exactly where I was coming from, and then remember that this person knows what she's doing. And the way that we managed to do that was twofold. One was through the mentoring that he gave me, which was opening doors for me and making sure that I was in front of the right people. But also, I knew that if I was going to have to be in front of the right people, I needed to have a voice. And by the time I had gotten to this point in my life, my voice had gone silent. And this is sort of where Patty comes into play, because until you can raise your voice and tell your story, it's very difficult for you to move forward and progress whichever path you decide you want to take. And at that point, before I was introduced to Patty, I was introduced to a speaking group, a speaking organization, Toastmasters International. And they swore to me, Teresa, you come in here and you'll be fine. We'll wrap you up in cotton wool and we'll help you. And that's exactly what they did. The first club that I joined, they were my family. They were my
That's awesome. So, and I don't think what people realize, and especially even women today, realize what it was like when we were raised. Like you said, um, you were told not to talk, or even when we had moved up here, it's like, well, I can't. They never wanted to expand or put women at the top of anything. We had to always justify everything, every action. You had to work double the amount of time. You'd have to give 120%. You work those hours, because I was a young mom and I worked every single day, except unless
yeah.
I did take time for the kids. But then at night when they were asleep, I'd be working, or early in the morning. So I totally get it. So, and people like you have made a way for generations. You just going through it, and I know there's many other women and that are especially even watching right now. Um, and I appreciate each and every one of you. And it's being positive. It's not playing the victim because you're not the victim. You're like, I became a warrior. And Lori and I, that's one of our things in our group is, we're speaking to you warriors because you overcome. And so I'm excited to hear your story, how you met Patty here.
Oh, that's next. That's next. So, the being a part of an organization like that, you're asking to begin with, how do we progress? How do we, push our way through our lives and make some big or take some big steps? And once I joined that speaking organization, they did exactly what they said they would do, and that was to support me along every decision I had to make. But by the time I had been in the organization about 3 years, I had taken on so many different leadership roles that I knew it was time for me to land the request to my now ex-husband that it was time for him to go. They helped me find my voice and the courage to do that. And by being able to do that, it then meant that the weight was lifted, the agony was taken away, the financial stability was there, because by the time I'd been in that organization for 3 years, I had landed 4 different promotions because I was being listened to and heard, and I was being understood, and they were remembering me even more, not
And
for the secretarial role, clerical roles, but for what I was bringing to the table.
so did they help you with working with so you could have your kids, or,
Yeah, I mean,
they
this
try
was
to
the
let you prioritize them? Because that's the great bosses out there. It's like I
yeah.
worked for somebody where I could have my girls with me. It didn't matter.
It was at a time when flexible working had just come in, and people were being allowed to come in a little bit later. I had to drop the kids at school by 8:30, 9 o'clock, so I didn't have to show up to work until 10. That gave me that extra flexibility. If I needed somebody to pick them up, or I needed to pick them up at 3 or 3:30, then I could leave early, take my lunch at that point, instead of taking a lunch and then having to leave and then come back, and it would have been a nightmare. So having the flexibility to do the job that I was doing without it being a 9 to 5, that was really, really powerful. And I think that helps, even today, that helps young moms, especially coming back into the workforce to try and find their feet. And whether they're coming back full time or they're coming back, part time, 2 or 3 days a week. I've
Yeah, that's
actually noticed.
awesome. I love hearing that. And I wanted to make this special
Mhm.
too. If you're a mom, you're a warrior because
Absolutely.
moms work their fannies off. All that taking care of the kids, you're getting up, you're the nurse, you're the doctor, you're the housekeeper, you're everything. You don't need to work a second job. It's more like if you want to. And I realize some people need to, but I just wanted moms to feel like you are a warrior, because so many times society makes moms out like they're don't do anything.
I've had this conversation with my daughter just recently. She is a mother of three boys under 8, three under the age of 8, and her pet peeve right now is the fact that so many people look down on her because she is a stay-at-home mom. And she says, "What is wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, wanting to raise my children in an environment to where they will be strong and powerful and will have that nurturing that I can give them?" And because she's able to do that, it's a blessing. Uh, and like we say, there are some parents that have to work. You have to have two incomes in order to survive in our world today for many people. So if you have that opportunity to raise your kids as long as you can by staying at home, I applaud you for being able to do that. And just remember that you also have your circle of family, because they say it takes a tribe to raise a child. And that's part of the role that I play, being the nana.
Awesome.
And it is wonderful because whenever I show up, they all come running to me going, "Nana, Nana, Nana, let's go outside and play." And I'm still in my high heels, right? So
Teresa, I want to say, I want to invite your daughter if she's going to watch this or anyone that feels like that. I have a question, if I may be honest and completely bold, is that if that kind of self-doubt is on her role right now is more self-inflicted, and if it is, I want to invite them to shed it off because of their shoulders, of their skin, and shut it off, also like turn it off because so many women wish and long to do that. And
yeah.
like you said, if you have the blessing to stay home, it is just very commendable. Everybody, everybody, I think society has evolved, whether there's a person or two that want to fail, make you feel otherwise. Society has realized that it's the hardest job ever.
Um,
We have all seen the little reel that comes around Mother's Day saying like, "Oh no, I want to hire you for you to do this, that, 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 that." And at the end, it turns out it's like it's a mother. And I'm like, what? How can a person do all those things and be so underpaid? So,
and
um,
you're exactly right, because
mhm.
there's also a new clip that's come out that said if you were to add up everything that this woman does, this
There's no
parent,
salary, there's no
there is no
wage.
salary. But they're saying it's like now it's increased to 210,000 for a year to
Yeah.
do everything that a mother does at home. Right.
And because their mothers become such great managers of time, finances, resources at home, etc., they are wanted for several roles, and if training is offered for some positions. So I just wanted to mention this because it's such a paradigm, and there's so much happening in society nowadays. But in real life, I think people have been able to understand the importance of that role. And I understand there's some women out there that don't want to do it or can't stand it, being at home with the kids and a trusted person or daycare center takes care of it and life is still good.
Yeah.
But for the ones that choose to and are blessed to stay, just be so happy and thankful that you have that opportunity. And another thing is, I commend your daughter. She's a mother of three children. I was able to stay home with eight. I have eight children, six boys, two girls. And remember, eight. You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you know what? Right now, I mean, that happened. The kids are gone, basically. Or once that youngest one went to kindergarten, I'm like, oh, what do I do with my life? And this is when my story about life coaching and everything started.
Yeah.
So time is gonna go by like this, and then you're going to enjoy that next season of your life. It's coming. It's coming. So to your daughter and those mothers out there, enjoy it, enjoy it, enjoy it. Teresa, I have
That
a question. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, no. I was going to say that is exactly what I say to her. Enjoy it while you can because it is going to go by so fast. Because it
Yes.
did for me. It did for me. That's why I'm relishing in the ability to be able to spend time with the grandsons. That's
Yeah.
the next stage for me.
So I wanted to say and observe and note that you had is my understanding, a boss, male, right?
I did. Yeah.
And I love the fact that he saw your potential and you called him you referred to him as a mentor. So I just want to say shout out for that mentor if he's still around and if you're
Yes.
still in touch with that person, because while it is true that sometimes it's hard for us to compete in a very male dominant workforce, etc., there are some men that are amazing and encourage and see they don't play that competitive thing. That if they see it, they see it, and they understand that if you have the qualities, you have the qualities. And I want to say the opposite too, that women, when they're jealous of us or when they just want to just get and climb that corporate ladder, no matter what, they become very mean and sabotaging. But I just want to say, and sometimes we can also be our best collaborators and encouraging and push each other, right, to climb that whatever mountain it is. So I just wanted to note that congratulations for having and trusting you trusted this mentor, and that it came in the form of a male boss, that he helped you so much all the way to till you met Patty and you joined Toastmasters, which it was like
Yeah.
another organization that helped you continue in
I
your progress.
I will say there are a lot of women that don't like to work for male bosses, or then there are other women who don't want to work for a female boss, and it's for some of the reasons that you said. But one of the things that Patty and I do, we collaborate together. We have a one of our little tree limbs is helping women break through those sort of situations. We're here to lift each other up, not push each other down. So we absolutely don't want to denigrate anybody who is, working their way up that ladder. It's just helping them put a mirror in front of their face, though, to say, hey, did you realize that when you talk like this is how you are perceived? And that's what I do with a lot of the coaching I do with senior execs. If they're in a female senior exec role, it's helping them realize they do not have to be a man in order to reach that level. They don't have to lead like a man because that's not where we come from. You lead like a woman, but with assertive attributes that help you keep climbing and reaching the pinnacle where you want to be. So,
One
and
of the
let's take, yeah.
I was going to say one of my favorite quotes has always been, you should always treat the executives on the top the same as the janitors down below, because it
Mhm.
doesn't matter who you are, what you look like. It's all how you treat people. And and you see it both male, female, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care who you are. It's how you treat me. And one of the things I've discovered too is, and I'm sure you're there, is like you said, talking about voice and tone, is sometimes we have to look for the good in people too. Because if we're always looking for something negative about them, we will twist things in our minds and think they said something bad or they're out to get us when they're not. But it's like, so if you're always looking for the dirt in somebody, you're going to always find it. If you're always looking for the good, you will find some good.
And that is really powerful because it's like that manifesting what you want. If you're not going to manifest something negative, are you? You're always going to look for something positive, something that's going to make you feel good. And I like what you said. People don't usually remember what you say, but they remember how they make you feel, right? You remember how they make you feel. And so it's always important to be careful with how you speak to someone. I also train in high schools with 14 and 15-year-olds, yeah, teaching them how to find their voice and actually deliver an effective speech in a day's time. And one of the biggest things that I try and get across to them is authenticity. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Actually try and find something that's really important to you to talk about for that final speech because there's somebody else out there that needs to hear what you have to say. So, even at 14 and 15 years old, they're still trying desperately to find their voice and what they can do with it to make a difference. And today, especially, some of the ones I work with today are recognizing the social inequalities and the political anarchy that's happening, worldwide, and they're very concerned. So having them being given a platform to raise their voice and have it listened and heard is a really empowering position to be as a trainer for high school kids anyway, for the high school students at that age. But I'll go back and
Now you're going to have to tell us about Patty, right?
I know exactly because Patty has, gosh, she has so much history and knowledge and wisdom. And the first time that I met her was when I was running for the board of directors for Toastmasters International. You have to get elected in order to be placed onto this board of directors. And you have to run a campaign. And it's almost like you are running a political campaign, like you're running for an office on the government, in the government. And so you have to have your ducks in a row. Everything's got to be lined up. You've got to be prepared for the interview. You've got to be prepared for interviewing other people. You've got to be prepared to speak off the cuff, impromptu. And the first time I ran, I was running against an individual that Patty was coaching, Khaled Matlagetu. And everybody told me, Teresa, you got this in the bag. You got no worries. It's yours to lose, right? Well, I lost it the first time. I absolutely lost it because what I was doing and what a lot of people do when they think I've gone through this level, this level, this level, I now need to go to this one, that you start to tick boxes. And for the majority of the campaign, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I was saying the right things and I was looking at the right people and talking to the right ones. But it wasn't from here. It wasn't from the heart. It was from here, from the head. And I when it got to the election time and everybody placed their votes, I took 49% of the vote and he took 51 because he spoke from the heart. And he had an absolutely brilliant coach who worked him through his leadership and communication prior to him running for the election. And that just happened to be Miss Patty, right? So I realized that I was missing something. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I had to talk to somebody, work with somebody who could help me uncover it. And that's when I picked up the phone or an email or whatever. I think I sent her a little text and I said, Patty, I want to talk to you. Yeah. And from there, I remember the very first meeting that we had, she recalled back to the Friday before the election of that one that I lost. She says, Teresa, who stole your voice? And it still hits me emotionally because it wasn't my opponent who stole my voice. It actually was somebody way, way, way back in my history. And it and it revolves around my family and where we come from, and probably the leader that I knew I didn't want to be, which was my father. Okay. Um, so in that first meeting with her, I'm in tears because she's already touched on that underlying block that I had and how I was trying to please everybody instead of actually speaking from the heart and wanting to go for the changes that I knew I could help make happen. And I worked with Patty for over a year, probably 2 or 3 years, to be quite honest. And she helped me uncover the true in me. She helped me uncover the good in me and the beautiful. And there's a little exercise that Patty gets everybody to do, and it's called free flow writing. And if you are struggling with who you are and what you're wanting to accomplish, this exercise is so fabulous. And I'm just going to steal it from her really quickly. And I love you, Patty, okay? Because I know she's listening. Um,
She
I love
is.
that. I'm going to stop you just for a second here,
mm,
Teresa.
mm,
I love who stole your voice
mm,
because I have had, of course, that happen to me too, many times. But I know so many people that need to ask that question, so many teenagers. And I think a lot of times parents don't even realize they're doing it. I think adults, it might be well intentioned people that steal your voice. And there are people are afraid to be themselves, you know. So I love that. It's a great question for everybody to ask, you know, because a lot of times we're not being ourselves, even though we're trying to be ourselves. And then when we're trying to be ourselves, you know, and we mess up there, you know, then there's like, oh my gosh, I probably shouldn't have said anything or I shouldn't have done this, you know, when you're just trying to be authentic, because kind of like Patty said, you know, your tones, everything else goes with it. So go ahead. Sorry
mm.
about that.
No, 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 it's good. It's what Patty does, and especially with this particular exercise, it helps you dig down into the deeper you, the vulnerable you. And if you can learn to be vulnerable, then you can learn to lead and you can learn to speak in an authentic way. And that's the power of this particular exercise. And I actually go back and do it every once in a while. I refresh my thinking on it. But she says take a clean piece of paper and a pen, because there's something about writing that connects your brain to the paper when you write these things down. And ask yourself, and I may not get these questions exactly right, but this is what I do whenever I revisit this exercise. What is true? What do I hold true about me? And you sit 5 minutes and just free flow write. I believe that what is true for me is I'm intelligent. What's true about me is I'm gorgeous. What's true about me is I'm ambitious. What's true about me is I'm empathetic, right? And you just keep writing and writing and writing until you uncover, until you can't write anymore. Because the more you write and you time yourself, the further down that 5 minutes you get, the deeper you have to dig to actually put something of substance on that page. And and that exercise in itself, just that one, what is true about you? What do you find true, to be about you? It just opens the heart and it opens the mind, and it helps you actually
Make sure
recognize
those comments are positive.
our positive. Exactly, exactly. They have to
Not,
be positive. Not
I'm a horrible person.
no.
You know, none of that.
The key word here is true.
Yes.
And truth usually has to do with light. And when we are given this exercise and this time, I'm sure Patty explains the purpose, and I'm sure the participants know this is the purpose, because the thing is, we're all born with greatness. We're all born worthy and great and deserving, and we forget about that because of the people that are stealing it, right? The people that are speaking loud, and the people that take real estate in our head, right? The people that we are giving room on board in our head and in our mind. And exactly. So, Tammy, of course, and I hope people understand that these are the truths
They are very
because
true.
when with light and truth come this positive and optimistic ways, and this is what we're gonna like unveil and tap into, so we can just carve it out or dig it out of ourselves, because these are the truth. If we are born of, or we believe in the divine and a master creator, we know that he created us here for goodness and for a higher purpose, right? So, and then uh we are so used to that voices or those individuals that steal it from us, that we're recalibrating with this exercise. So that's so great.
And I will tap in on that because you said something really really powerful there. It's the real estate that we allow them to take in our brain. It's not that we're saying, "Here, come get in my head." We are by not pushing back on those things that are not true, we allow that real estate in our head to be taken up by something that is not doing us any good. So, and that was the really powerful thing that helped me understand exactly where I was going wrong and how I was, beating myself up and trying to be somebody I wasn't. And that particular exercise, what makes it even more powerful is after you have written it down, you got to say it out loud. And you got to say it with attitude, and you got to say it with passion. And you can't just go, well, I am this and I am this and I am. No, you got to mean every single word that you've written down. And you can do it to yourself, or you can do it with a group of people, with the family, with friends, with your children, whatever. But it just really helps you connect more with who the person is that you are or want to rediscover, to bring them to the forefront instead of letting those other little negative renters up in your head. We want to get rid of those renters.
Those little voices that are
Yeah,
so mean and
it's like,
nasty,
yeah,
right? One
evict.
of the exercises that you were just reminding me that we used to do in a group setting was having each person, you give them everybody little notes, and they write something positive about the person next to them or about each person in the group. You can do it. And when you get all of those back about what they find positive, and sometimes it's things that you never expected.
Mhm.
And when you see somebody else's point of view on those positive things, it it's so encouraging and so inspiring.
I did that recently with my daughter and my son. And I asked my daughter to ask my grandsons, what would they remember about Nana if she weren't here anymore? Is that kind of thing. What do you remember? What's the most special thing about Nana that you remember? And what they came back with was so powerful. And I used it in a speech that I delivered, I think it was back in February or oh, well, Patty can remember it was at an event called Unmute Mothers, and it was going through the different levels a woman goes through as an individual, a young woman, a single mom, a married mom, a grandmother, a woman that will never have children. All of the elements of being a woman. And my take on it was, what was it like being that Nana, that one that is kind of the matriarch of the family, they say. And when the boy said, I remember Nana bringing us clothes from the charity shop. We always loved Nana bringing us clothes. But the one big thing that really surprised me was when they were really being honest, and they said, you know what, Mama, I love it when Nana comes and she goes outside and she plays with us without ever even questioning the fact that, yeah, I'm coming to play, right? There is no doubt in their mind that when I walk through that door, I am at their beck and call. Whatever they want to do, we're going to do it. And that's what they remember. So, it's somebody said to me, change your words, change your mindset. So if you're going into a situation where you feel really negative about something, change it to the positive, and that will help you change the way that you look at things. Even if it comes down to that visit with the grandkids, thinking I'm going to be exhausted tomorrow, but you know what? We're going to do it anyway.
Hey,
Absolutely.
I always hear from my daughter that I exhaust my grandkids, And we just had 5 teenage boys here for 10 days. So, and we actually hiked with them even and stuff. So, and they're 17, they were 17, 18, and 19.
Oh my gosh, those are good ages. Those are such good ages. Also, those are really kind of crazy ages as well because they're going through, early
Oh,
manhood.
yeah, we saw
And
it all. But it was great. It was fun, you know. It was an honor knowing that your grandkids want to bring their friends over to spend 10 days with you.
that's
That's
an
to me is
amazing
an honor.
accomplishment. That's like, I have ticked my, yep, I can ring the bell now. Okay.
One thing I say, Teresa, like you were saying about words, I work a lot with that too, and the power of the mind, etc., as a clinical hypnosis practitioner. And I always say, change the program, change the channel, because we have been programmed, right, to
Yeah.
think some things about ourselves. And we need to, it's time to change the program or the programming. So, and think new things. And this is something is correct me if I listened well. It was Patty the one that asked you who stole your voice?
Yes.
Hey, very powerful moment, I'm sure, and powerful question. I want the audience, our audience here, to think about that question. I even typed it in the comments. I said deep question to think about and ponder. And I also want to do a follow-up question, and I'm sure Patty has the same, like a follow-up question or something. And I want you to think about how do you define your voice in the context of your identity, in the context of your purpose, and from here onwards. It doesn't matter who stole your voice in the past and who you thought you were according to that. But remember, the exercise Teresa shared, that Patty shares, it's about what do you hold true about yourself. And now this is a couple of questions, is like, how do you define your voice in the context of your identity and then your mission here on earth from now on? And how will you shape your voice moving forward? Because it's a matter of choice. It's not that easy. Like, I'm gonna snap my fingers, but it's something you have to work on. Personal development is something you have to work on constantly and aggressively, especially if you had this toxic upbringing or messy upbringing where you were told many things that are not true. So I just wanted to make that observation, because a follow-up question on about who stole your voice is important too, to know what to do from here on moving forward once we get that realization of who stole it or what happened to us.
Well, exactly, and it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, it's not going to happen overnight. This is something that you will work on for the rest of your life, really, to understand. Hey, what I went through was generational trauma. I didn't even know what that meant, until about 5, 10 years ago. And you're thinking, Jenna, what did I go through? What did we go through? Because you're just raised in an environment that you know nothing else about. No other different environment because hey, this is just the way it is. But
Well, I have a
um,
quick question though about this.
mhm,
Is it true that your voice could be stolen today?
yeah,
Just or somebody can if we let them.
yes. Oh, that is absolutely true.
There can be
We
more
are
than just one
seeing.
person or one event that can steal our voices. And it could be something that so minor that nobody would even realize.
So I will tell you right now, I work with a lot of women on finding their voice, especially executive women, and they reach a certain point in their career, and they'll be on a board, and I experienced this when I was on the board as well, to where they will be shushed and literally shh, and it's like whoa, and it's always a man that will shush you, and it was at that point when I was on the board and that individual shushed me. I stood up, and it wasn't a done thing. You didn't stand up, and you sat around this board table and you put your little placard up to say I want to say something. And the individual went around and around the board picking everybody else except for me. And I'm going, okay. At that point I stood up and I said, I've held my placard for 15 minutes now, and I think it's time that I had a chance to say what I have to say. And I could have sat there and just, gone, heck, he's not going to pick on me, right? But I thought, you know what? If I do that, then all of the other women that come behind me or that are sat at that table with me are going to say, oh, it's okay to not say anything. And it's never okay not to say anything.
I'm
So
proud of you.
it takes a lot of courage to do
It
that.
takes more courage than people realize.
And they think, oh, well, am I going to get kicked off the board? Are they going to fire me? Are they going to do whatever? It depends on what kind of board you're on, though, as well. Or it depends on what job you're in. But you have to be very strategic about the way in which you decide to stand up for yourself and for others. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things in my career that I have watched and I have followed through with, and that is to recognize that there have been so many people, women in particular, that have come before me and laid the path for me to follow. And it would be remiss of me to ever drop that ball and not remind our women of today, our youth growing up, that there are women that have laid the path for you. Don't forget them. Go back and remember who helped us get the vote, who helped us lay the line for getting your own bank account, for having your own checks, to buy a house, to get a mortgage, to have your own money. And that was the women that came before us.
Well, and one of
So,
the things I've noticed lately is young men are having the same problem.
yeah.
You know,
Do you want to know why men are having a problem like this? Do you want to know
it's
Yes,
and
because it's because women wants to overpower or compete,
why?
or why
It's
else?
more,
Patty
it's
mentioned
more.
something.
Yeah, and it is that, but it's also women are starting to get into the competition of it. They don't have to. They could collaborate and still be as strong
I
as they
guess
were
what I'm
competing.
actually what I've noticed is a lot of young men aren't as and this kind of stemmed from what Patty had told us too about some of the young men in Dubai. They're all
Mm.
playing video games a lot of times.
Honey, honey. And
Instead they're not being taught to stand up for themselves, to have their voices either.
but
In
and
school,
that takes
everybody's just
the
like, train yourself, do whatever, parents or whatever. And then we have some wonderful, wonderful teachers and wonderful parents out there. But I work with, our church is doing a thing where on suicide prevention.
mhm,
And one of the things that has really harmed a lot of our teacher children when they did all these studies was social media. It
yes,
was our smartphones
yep.
and
th-
people, and it harms them even for work ethics. There's not a lot, they're not being trained for those work ethics, and
So
it's, and in the job, if you have the good work ethics, you really want to work. And I was telling my grandsons this, I'm like, I never had to have a resume. I got hired just by my voice, just by introducing myself. And I'm like, and when I hired people, yeah, I might have glanced at their resumes and different things like that, but I hired them on their personalities, you know, and but you see that a lot. So I see.
and you're
I know
right.
it's kind of different. I'm just throwing it out there. So
No, it is it's a really valid point because we are seeing a major issue with our young men, young boys growing up and becoming that that male that they want to be and not the toxic male that they think they need to be. And one of the things that our schools are letting down, and this is worldwide, is we are training our boys the same way we train girls. Girls love to sit down and be in story circle and share their stories. Boys want to be up and, wrestling with each other or go out and play in the mud or play sports or whatever because their testosterone levels are through the sky, especially when they start to get into high school. And they need to release this energy. But we as a world have put them in a school for 8 hours, sat at a desk, being still and writing instead of actually turning that around and do what I think Finland is probably one of the only countries that actually has tackled their issue with schools, and they turn every single day into a project to where you are not sat behind a desk. You're actually working on a project that brings in science, that brings in history, that brings in math, that brings in civics, right?
I love that because I was actually raised, boys and girls did the same thing. I was when you're growing up on farms and stuff, it doesn't matter who you are, you did the same chores. You always helped each other as a teamwork. And it wasn't like, oh, since you're a woman, you have to do this, or since you're a guy, you have to do this. I was lucky and I was raised to everybody pitches in. And I love that.
So I was raised on a farm as well. And the one thing that happened on every weekend is we went to my paternal grandparents' house, and they were on a nursery. They ran a nursery, so they grew flowers and
Awesome.
not raised kids. They grew flowers, right? And they were so unlucky. They think they were unlucky because they had 13 granddaughters. Had no grandsons, right? So nobody to drive the tractors, they thought. Nobody to pull the weeds, they thought. Nobody to actually do the hard work like pulling the hay down out of the barn, they thought, until I came along. And I was probably the tomboy. And I wanted to drive the tractor. I wanted to pull the weeds. I wanted to play in the barn and pull the hay down. I wanted to do all those things because I thought, I'm as good as the boys. I can do the same thing as the boys because that was me, unfortunately. If I
Oh,
were to
that
call
was
myself,
me. That's actually a lot of my nieces, my daughters. I would always, grandkids are taught the same thing. Both all boys
it,
and girls, how to fish, how to work, how to garden, everything.
but it instills in us a sense of duty. It instills in us a sense of work ethic, right? We can do this, and it really doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy. The work has to get done. So get out there and do it. And just get your hands dirty. I don't get my hands dirty too much.
Well,
Anymore, anymore, I'm sure.
I put my
one of the
gloves
things
on, okay.
I was gonna say, we had some friends over for some neighbors over for dinner for the first time, and they have a I think 17 and 19-year-old. After dinner, those boys picked up all the plates, scraped them all, washed them up, and put them in the dishwasher. I was just like, oh my gosh. They're like, can we do this for you? And I'm like, yes. I don't and it's such a blessing to see families that do that and teach that and install that in their kids. I love it.
I taught my kids from the age of 8. One, they got to make their own breakfast, they got to make their own lunch to go to school, and they got to make their own bed because this is how you learn to take care of yourself. If we don't teach them, if we don't train them early on, then they grow up expecting that they expect everybody to do things for them, and that's the one thing that I want my grandsons to realize, that you're not here to be waited on hand and foot. If you are looking to marry the person that you love, then you have to treat them like an equal and not like your surrogate mother, okay? They're not there to pick up after you and take care of you that way. They're meant to work with you in partnership as a collaboration. Yeah.
This is wonderful. I love that we've gone through it, your story and how to move forward, how what you're doing with your grandchildren and with Tammy as well. Time goes by super fast when we're having fun and amazing deep conversations. Teresa, we're honored and happy to have you here. I
We're
love the
gonna have to
fact
have
that
Teresa back.
yeah, Patty has been watching, and being a good cheerleader. Ika has been learning so much, and so many other viewers watching here online, live, and also I know the ones that are going to enjoy this later on. Teresa, what would be as your closing words of encouragement to helping those watching gain the skills needed to become a more effective speaker and leader, especially with everything we've talked about the importance of our voice?
So one of the biggest pieces of advice I was ever given is, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that relates, is a South African statement, actually, or phrase. And uh, the one thing that we can do better is to pull somebody into our lives who can help us, whether it's a coach or it's a mentor or it's somebody that we can confide in. By having that person to push you and hold you accountable, that will get you taking the first step. And that is the first step, actually trying to uncover what you really want to do. Do you want your voice to be heard, or do you just want to be able to say something? And when you've never been able to say something before. So I work with people who have been really, really nervous Nellies who have got to stand up and deliver something to their boss, and we help them overcome those fears. Or the senior executive who is tired of being told to shush and puts their foot down and actually uncovers their voice to the next level. So get a coach or a mentor. That would be my first suggestion. But the one that I will leave you with is my quote, and that is from Maya Angelou. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold
Story.
story,
Mhm.
right? So if we do not build in the vulnerability to tell our stories, that puts a barrier in front of us. So take the barrier down or kick it down or jump over the hurdle and start to think about your story and how raising your voice with the help of somebody else will not only open the door for you to be a better speaker and a better leader, it will open the door for somebody else out there who needs to hear your story.
Teresa,
Wonderful.
can they get your book on through Amazon? Teresa hasn't really Teresa, tell us a little bit about what you do so we can encourage her.
Yeah, so I'm an executive
Check
coach,
you
but
out.
I know. Executive coach, I'm a trainer, and I'm also an author. I've written in a couple of different books, but the one book that she's talking about is this one, and it's called If You Want to Lead, You Have to Speak. It is on Amazon.com, so if you just type in that title and you put my name, Teresa Dukes, it will be there. It's not too expensive. It's within a reasonable amount of money. I think it's like, $20 or something like that. I don't know. It's like 15 quid here, right? Um, but it gives you a step-by-step process to go through if you are looking to deliver a keynote speech or you just have something that you need to do for a work presentation. Everything you need to know is in that book. And if you get stuck after you read the book, just drop me an email and we'll have a
I
conversation.
I love how you said that you help individuals get to the next level in the corporate world. And I'm sure, Teresa, that can be those teachings, those principles can be applied and implemented to your personal life, whether that's in your family, whether that is in relationships. And that is very valuable. Thank you again for being here. Thanks for sharing parts of your story and your goodness and all your insights and advice. Like Tammy said, we would love to have you next time or once again. And we want to say goodbye to everybody. Think about who stole your voice. How are you going to reshape or define your voice from here on so you can live the life you love with passion and purpose? And this is bye from me right now. If
So,
Tammy and
and I
Teresa
want
want
to
to say,
say thank you, Patty, for referring to Teresa. We love it when our guests refer speakers like Teresa, because we get to feel their passion and what they do love. So, and we want to make sure you do check out her site as well as you check out our Unlocking Freedom in Nature site as we are doing some updating. Because we do have some different retreats and stuff coming up in for 2026. So be sure to check those out because we do have payment plans for those that need that. So we're excited about that. Lori and I are working on some different things. And we just wanted to say thank you so much for being here. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we hope you have a wonderful week. Goodbye.